Sometime in 1985, Oregon City, Oregon, my dad brought home an Atari. We set up Atari and we played Asteroids all evening. I'll never forget that night. It was that brief moment I spent with my father. He was always around. My dad was a postal worker most of his life and for briefly a truck driver. He passed away when I was about 15 to cancer. That was in 92. So I was about 14. But back in the 80s, we'd moved around. My parents had got divorced. My brother moved in with my mom. My father and I moved out to Oregon City. I was in I believe it was the last part of 6th grade. And we moved out there halfway through the year. I remember the first week of school, some stranger came up to me and said, "Hey, so-and-so wants to kick your ass after school." I was like, "Who's that?" And they pointed him out. He was like the biggest guy in the school. He's just some bully. Like the real life shit back in the 80s, you know, the jean jacket guy with the cut off sleeves and the attitude. He just wants to beat up people because he can. I avoided him for the rest of the year and managed to run back to my apartment every day. But I'll never forget those moments sitting and playing on the Atari with my dad until one day we got Jumpman Jr. and a ColecoVision. If you're not familiar, ColecoVision was another, I think it was, I don't know who they were made by. Might have been Activision, maybe an early offshoot. I'm really not sure. Anyhow, there were a lot of competing units out there. Jumpman Jr. was a guy who would jump up and grab these vines and swing over alligators, jump on the heads of creatures. It was an interesting game. It was fun. Then we had Pitfall. And anyhow, this isn't about the specific games. It's about the nostalgia of the past. When I look back to the 80s and to the games that we had, they were games that everyone was playing. Centipede, Space Invaders, things like that. When the Nintendo took off, years later when I moved out and I was in, high school, a freshman, we got a Nintendo, started playing Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt since it came with the system. Loved that shit. It was the greatest. Absolutely epic to play Mario Brothers over and over and over. It was the kind of game you wanted to play over and over because it was fun. You could do speed runs if you wanted, which really came later. That wasn't a thing when we were kids. It was just about playing. Maybe go as fast as you can, but it wasn't as competitive as it became. And back then, a little later, I became a skateboarder, and being a skater, it was like in the prime of skating when we first had noses on boards, but at the same time, not everybody was pretentious. I even skated with Shaun White one time. Or rather, he showed up at a skate park we were at and basically dominated the half pipe and nobody could skate. He was like probably 10 or 11 at that point. Nobody knew somebody knew who he was, but he wasn't like, obviously who he is now. But anyway, being the skater, gamer, Hesher kid, I was really into heavy metal, like going to heavy metal shows. Got into the Grateful Dead the next year. A lot of weird shit happened when I was younger. But I've watched this unfold from the early games, the early music, which tended to be more happy and uplifting, I gotta say, back in the 80s. Something happened, a shift in the 90s. And then when the 2000s hit, I feel like it was like the lost decade. And I really thought that things would start to improve. I'm starting to call this decade the terrible 20s. It seems like everything that was beautiful when I was young is gone. The games, they're all just, I don't game anymore. My son does sometimes, but mostly what I hear from the gamers is, complaints that you need a subscription service for this particular game, and that if you can't get a hard disk, so you have to buy the game, but you used to just be able to buy a disc, put it in, and play the game. not connected to the internet. Those days are over. Everything is bullshit now. It's all subscription services. It's all people just trying to nickel and dime you. Even the free games, of course, freemium games, if you will, tricking kids into basically playing slot machines online and, putting a bunch of money into it. South Park did a great episode on that one. But the movies are complete shit. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Like Disney has just, and I'm not just saying because they've made different, more diverse of characters. I don't fucking really care about that. There is an underlying message, I get it. But when you're doing remakes of old movies and ruining the whole point of them, you're just stupid. And so they're hemorrhaging, money because of these stupid decisions. It's basically an underestimation of people's tolerance levels because they know when something's good. It's not just Disney. The movies have lost their soul. Like, they don't have any good plot lines. They don't have any good stories. You can't relate to the characters. It's like halfway through a movie, a 3-hour movie, and you're already like, what the fuck is this? It's like watching Avatar 2. It's painful. But those are just my opinions. And I could say the same about music, even though there are some gems out there in the music world. It seems like everything's already been done. And now people are just trying really dumb shit that I don't like. Math rock, complicated offbeat drum beats that I can't dance to. It's just not my thing. But people are into it because it's different. It's unique. That's fine. I'm just not. So all of this is my opinion. There's somebody out there who believes all the movies today are better. All the music today is better. And will, completely disagree with my assessment. And I respect that. I do. But you're wrong. No, really, I've had so many younger people say they wish they were born back in the day, and I get that. I'll tell you a secret. When I was about, 14, 15, I think I was kind of stoned. I was young. One of my early times, and I was listening to, like, the Beatles, John Lennon or something, and I remember sitting in my room and I started crying because I wasn't born in the 60s, or that I wasn't growing up in the 60s. It wasn't like really crying. It was like, shit, like damn it, man, I'm born in the wrong generation, man, that's fucked up. And I think a lot of people feel that way. But honestly, looking back, even as an adult, I still feel that way. My parents had the best generation. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, yeah, shit happened, but it was the time when you could go out and get a job and still buy a house, have a white picket fence, and, all those things for the American dream. And after all, you don't live very long. Might as well enjoy what you have. But all good things must come to an end. Fortunately, you can still go out and buy an Atari. And you can still go out and buy movies on DVD, old movies. You can still live the entire life of somebody who lived through those times. The only difference is you won't be able to, it won't be new or recent to other people. But who cares? So I guess my point is that not only do we have what we have now, we have a whole history of awesome shit to draw on. So if you look at it that way, learning to see the glass half full is one thing, but, there's a silver lining on everything. We don't have to let the current world affect us the way it seems to affect most people. A lot of folks are really led on by the news and what's going on in politics. And it's crucial, I think, to keep our sanity and keep looking out the window, touch grass, do something that's not emotionally rousing in a negative way. Yeah. Strange time to be alive, I suppose, huh? That's my thought. What's your thought? Let me know. Peace out.